In a packed courtroom in San Francisco, a notorious motorcycle club boss in a wheelchair is being sued by his own younger brother to seize control of his empire. As the biker president sits completely paralyzed by heavy sedatives and his lawyer suddenly remains silent, everyone believes the case is already over. But just as the judge is about to sign the ruling, Maya, a 7-year-old black girl, suddenly stands up from the back row, clutching her worn backpack and declaring, "I have proof." Ignoring the laughter echoing throughout the courtroom, the little girl calmly turns on a small voice recorder, causing the entire cruel conspiracy of the perpetrators to erupt into the open right there before the court. Before we begin, this is a fictional story written to inspire and uplift. At Memory Stories, we believe the right story at the right moment can change everything. Golden Gate Park, San Francisco, spring season, the cherry blossoms were turning a vibrant pink, drifting down like tired birds. The air had that crisp bite that tells you the fog will roll in soon. On a wooden bench near the fountain, a man sat alone in a wheelchair. His name was Lincoln Cross, 62 years old. President of the Hells Angels West Coast Charter, controlling an underground and legitimate empire worth millions. But right now, none of that mattered. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the faded crimson bandana around his neck. Multiple sclerosis had taken his legs 3 years ago, pulling him off his beloved Harley-Davidson. Now it was working on everything else. Lincoln watched the joggers pass by, the young couples holding hands, the mothers pushing strollers. Nobody looked at him. Nobody ever did anymore. Being a feared boss, he had learned, was the loneliest thing in the world. A gust of wind swept through the park. His bandana lifted off his neck and flew away, tumbling across the path like a wounded bird. Lincoln reached out instinctively, but his body wouldn't cooperate. The bandana landed 10 feet away, right in the middle of the walkway. People walked past it. A woman in yoga pants stepped over it without breaking stride. A man in a business suit nearly kicked it aside. Nobody stopped. Lincoln's jaw tightened. He could summon 100 bikers with one phone call if he wanted to, but he couldn't pick up his own bandana. "Hey, mister." A small voice cut through the spring air. Lincoln looked up. A little girl was running toward him. She was black, maybe 7 years old, wearing a faded denim jacket that was too big for her. Her hair was pulled back in 2 neat puffs, and she was carrying a plastic pitcher that sloshed with yellow liquid. She scooped up the bandana without hesitation, shook off the dirt, and walked right up to his wheelchair. "Here you go," she said, holding it out with both hands. "The wind is really crazy today, huh?" Lincoln blinked. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. When was the last time a stranger had done something kind for him without wanting something in return? "Thank you," he managed. "That's very nice of you." The girl tilted her head, studying his scarred face and leather cut with the unfiltered curiosity that only children have. "You look really tired, mister. Like really, really tired. Are you sick or something?" Lincoln almost laughed. Grown men in his club never asked him that. They were too polite, too afraid. But this little girl just said what she saw. "Yes," he admitted. "I am sick, but I'm okay." The girl nodded seriously, like she understood. Then her eyes lit up. "Wait right here." She ran back to a small folding table near the edge of the path. Lincoln noticed it for the first time, a hand-painted sign taped to the front. "Maya's Lemonade, 50 cents. The girl, Maya, poured a cup and ran back to him. She pressed it into his hands, her small fingers warm against his cold, calloused ones. "This one's free," she announced, "because you look like you need it." Lincoln looked down at the cup. The lemonade was cloudy and had too many seeds floating in it. It was probably the most unprofessional beverage he had ever been offered. He took a sip. It was sour. Way too sour. And somehow it was the best thing he had tasted in years. "Do you like it?" Maya asked, bouncing on her heels. "My grandma taught me the recipe. She says the secret is to not add too much sugar because life is sweet enough already. But I think she just says that because sugar is expensive." Lincoln smiled. Actually smiled. His face felt strange, like it had forgotten how. "It's perfect," he said. Maya grinned so wide her eyes nearly disappeared. She plopped down on the bench next to his wheelchair, her legs swinging back and forth because they couldn't reach the ground. "I'm Maya," she said. "What's your name?" "Lincoln." "Nice to meet you, Lincoln. Do you come to the park a lot?" "I haven't seen you before, and I'm here almost every day after school." "I used to come here all the time," Lincoln said. "When I was younger before." He gestured vaguely at the wheelchair. Maya looked at it thoughtfully. "My friend Leo at school has a wheelchair too. His is blue. Yours is really tough-looking, though. Does it go fast?" "Not very fast, no." "That's too bad. If I had a wheelchair, I'd want it to go super fast, like a roaring Harley." She made a revving sound with her hands, like twisting a throttle, and Lincoln found himself chuckling. God, when was the last time he had laughed? They talked for almost an hour. Maya told him about her school, about her best friend Chloe, about the stray cat she was secretly feeding behind her apartment building. Lincoln told her about the open road, how he used to ride his motorcycle cross-country and sleep under the stars. No way. Maya's eyes went wide. "You can sleep under the stars? My grandma says it's too dangerous. You can if you know where to park your bike, and if you get far enough away from the city lights." "Can you teach me? I want to find the Big Dipper. We learned about it in science class, but I've never actually seen it." Lincoln hesitated. He had club meetings tomorrow, sit-downs with rival presidents, a chapter presentation next week. But looking at Maya's eager face, all of that seemed very far away. "Do you know how to play chess?" he asked. Maya shook her head. "Is it hard?" "It can be, but I think you'd be good at it." "You're smart." "Really?" She sat up straighter, proud. "My grandma says I'm too smart for my own good. What does that even mean?" Lincoln laughed again. "Twice in one day. That had to be some kind of record." "Tell you what," he said. "If you want, I can teach you. Chess and maybe some stargazing, too. We could meet here every Wednesday afternoon." Maya's face lit up like a sunrise. "For real? You promise?" "I promise." She stuck out her pinky finger. "Pinky, swear. That's how you make it official." Lincoln looked at her tiny finger. His own hands were shaking, the tremors worse than usual, but he managed to hook his pinky around hers. "Pinky, swear," he said. From across the park, a man in a black leather jacket watched them. He was standing near a customized black SUV, phone pressed to his ear, but his eyes never left Lincoln's wheelchair. His name was Silas Vance, Sergeant at Arms and personal enforcer to Lincoln Cross for the past 8 years. Loyal, efficient, indispensable. Or at least that's what Lincoln believed. Silas's expression was unreadable as he watched the old biker boss laugh with the little girl. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Then he turned away, speaking quietly into his phone. Back on the bench, Maya was chattering about her grandmother. "She works 2 jobs, but she still makes me breakfast every morning, even when she's really tired. She's the best grandma in the whole world. She sounds wonderful," Lincoln said. Maya's smile flickered just for a second. "She's been worried lately, though, about money stuff. We might have to move because of something called rent. I don't really understand it, but it makes her cry sometimes when she thinks I'm asleep." Lincoln's chest tightened. He knew about rent. He owned 12 commercial properties in the Bay Area alone. "I'm sorry to hear that," he said quietly. Maya shrugged, trying to look brave. "It's okay. Grandma says God will provide. and I'm helping by selling lemonade. I made $3 today." She paused, counting on her fingers. "Well, $2.50 now." But still, Lincoln wanted to say something. Wanted to tell her that he could open a safe right now and hand her enough cash to solve all her grandmother's problems forever. But something stopped him. He didn't want to be a Hells Angels boss right now. He just wanted to be Lincoln, the man who liked stars and chess and really sour lemonade. "Wednesday," he said instead. "Don't forget, I won't." Maya jumped off the bench, then paused. "Hey, Lincoln. Thanks for talking to me. Most grown-ups don't really talk to kids. They just kind of talk at us, you know?" "I know exactly what you mean," Lincoln said. "Most people talk at me too." Maya tilted her head, confused. Then she shrugged and ran back to her lemonade stand. Lincoln watched her go, something warm spreading through his chest. It felt foreign, uncomfortable almost. It took him a moment to recognize it. Hope. Then his body betrayed him. The spasm came without warning, a violent contraction that seized his entire torso. His hands clenched into fists, his teeth ground together. The cup of lemonade slipped from his fingers and splashed across the pavement. The pain was blinding, white-hot, like someone was twisting his spine with bare hands. He tried to call out, but his voice wouldn't work. Across the park, Silas was still on the phone, his back turned. Footsteps. Small, fast footsteps. Lincoln. Lincoln. Maya was there. Her small face appeared in his swimming vision, her eyes wide with fear. "What's wrong? What do I do?" He couldn't answer. The spasm was getting worse, but Maya didn't panic. She grabbed his hand, her tiny fingers squeezing tight. With her other hand, she fumbled in his heavy leather jacket pocket until she found his phone. "How do I call 911? She asked, her voice shaking but determined. "Is it just the numbers?" "Lincoln, stay with me." "Okay, I'm going to get help," she dialed. Lincoln heard her voice, high and scared, but clear. "Hello, my friend is really sick. We're in Golden Gate Park by the fountain. Please, hurry, please. He can't move and he looks really bad." Her hand never left his. She held on like she was afraid he would float away. Silas finally noticed. He came running over, his face showing perfect concern. "Boss, sir, what happened? I was just on a call I didn't see, but by then the ambulance sirens were already wailing in the distance, and Maya was still holding Lincoln's hand, whispering over and over, 'It's okay. It's going to be okay. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere.'" The last thing Lincoln saw before the paramedics arrived was her face, small and scared, but stubborn. Nobody had held his hand in 30 years. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in a long time, he wasn't afraid. 6 months passed like pages turning in a well-loved book. Every Wednesday at 4 o'clock, Lincoln Cross wheeled himself to the same bench in Golden Gate Park. And every Wednesday, Maya was already there waiting, her lemonade stand set up, her smile bright enough to cut through any gray sky. The chess lessons started simple. Lincoln taught her how each piece moved, using stories to make her remember. "The knight is like a biker swerving through traffic," he explained. "It jumps in an L shape because it can never go straight." Maya laughed so hard she knocked over 3 pawns. "That's the silliest thing I've ever heard." "Silly, but you'll never forget it now, will you?" She didn't. Within 2 months, she was beating him in short games. Not because he let her win, but because her mind worked in ways that surprised him constantly. "Check," she announced one afternoon, moving her bishop with confident fingers. Lincoln stared at the board. He hadn't seen that coming at all. "Where did you learn that move?" "I didn't learn it. I just saw it." She shrugged like it was obvious. You always protect your queen too much, Lincoln. Sometimes you got to let the important pieces take risks. He leaned back in his wheelchair, genuinely impressed. 7 years old and already understanding sacrifice. This kid was something special. Between moves, Maya talked. She talked about everything. Her teacher, Mrs. Gable, who always smelled like coffee. Her friend Chloe, who could do a backflip off the swings. The stray cat she had named Whiskers, who now showed up every night for dinner scraps. Grandma pretends she doesn't know about Whiskers, Maya confided. But I saw her leave out extra tuna last week. She's not as sneaky as she thinks. Lincoln listened to every word. He memorized the names of her classmates, her favorite subjects, her dreams. She wanted to be an astronaut, or maybe a mechanic, or maybe both. Can you fix engines in space? She asked seriously. I don't see why not. Spaceships need mechanics. Then that's what I'll do. Space mechanic. First one ever. She moved her rook. Your turn. What Maya didn't know was that Lincoln had been busy too, not just with chess. 3 weeks after their first meeting, he made a phone call. Anonymous. Untraceable. By the end of that month, her grandmother's rent debt had vanished. The landlord received a cashier's check with no return address, just a typed note that said, "Paid in full." Maya mentioned it one Wednesday, her eyes wide with wonder. Something crazy happened. Grandma was crying again, but this time she was happy crying, she said. An angel paid our rent. Do you believe in angels, Lincoln? His throat tightened. I believe good things happen to good people sometimes. Grandma thinks it was a church thing, but none of the churches we called knew anything about it. She squinted at him suspiciously. You're not an angel, are you? You don't have wings or anything. Lincoln laughed, but his heart ached in the best way. No wings, just a wheelchair. He didn't stop there. A scholarship appeared at Maya's school for underprivileged students, showing exceptional academic promise. Full tuition through high school. The donation came from a foundation nobody had heard of. Maya got the letter 2 months later. They picked me. She practically tackled his wheelchair, waving the paper in his face. They said I was smart. Me? Can you believe it? Grandma cried so hard she used up all our tissues. Lincoln held the letter, pretending to read it for the first time. Well, of course they picked you. Anyone who can beat me at chess deserves a scholarship. I beat you like 5 times already. Exactly. They should give you 2 scholarships. In the fortified clubhouse compound across town, only one person knew the truth about these Wednesday meetings. Elena had worked as the club's trusted housekeeper and nurse for 15 years. She came from Mexico City, sent money home to her sisters, and had never once broken his trust. When she first saw Lincoln preparing for the park visits, packing the chess set, choosing which bandana to wear, she knew something had changed. You're smiling, she said one morning, setting down his breakfast tray. Real smiling? Not the smile you use for rival presidents? Lincoln looked up from his eggs. Is that so unusual, Elena? In 15 years, I can count on one hand how many times I've seen you smile like this. She paused, her weathered hands folded in front of her apron. Who is she? He told her everything about Maya, about the lemonade, about the chess games in the park. Elena listened without interrupting, and when he finished, her eyes were wet. She sounds like a gift from God, Elena said quietly. She is. She's the only real thing in my life right now, Elena. The only person who talks to me like I'm just Lincoln, not Cross, not the president, just a man who likes chess and stars. Elena nodded slowly. I won't tell anyone, sir. Not a soul in this compound. Thank you. She hesitated at the door. Be careful. There are people here who don't wish you well. People who watch. Lincoln knew exactly who she meant. His brother Deacon had started showing up more often lately. Every few days, Deacon would appear at the estate unannounced, always with the same concerned expression, always asking about Lincoln's health. "You look tired, brother," Deacon said during one visit, settling into a leather chair in the study. "The doctors say your condition is progressing, don't they? Perhaps you should step back from the club. Let someone else carry the burden." Lincoln studied his brother's face. They had the same father, the same gray eyes, but something in Deacon had always been different. Harder. Hungrier. "I'm fine, Deacon. Just the usual symptoms." "Are you, though?" Deacon leaned forward, his voice dripping with false concern. "I spoke to Silas yesterday. He says, 'You've been forgetting meetings, losing track of conversations.' That's not like you, Lincoln." Something cold crawled down Lincoln's spine. "You spoke to Silas about my health. Someone has to look out for you. You're so busy with your little projects, you don't notice what's happening to your own body." Deacon smiled, but it never reached his eyes. Brotherhood has to stick together. After Deacon left, Lincoln sat alone in his study for a long time. His memory was getting worse. He knew that sometimes he couldn't remember what he had for breakfast. Sometimes he lost entire conversations, whole chunks of the day just gone like someone had erased them. But MS didn't work like that. His doctors had told him the progression would be physical, not mental. So why was his mind slipping? He pulled open his desk drawer and found a leather journal he hadn't used in years. His hand trembled as he wrote the date at the top of the first page. "Something is wrong," he wrote. "I don't know what, but something is very wrong." From that day on, he documented everything, every pill he took, every meal, every symptom. He noted when his memory failed and what he had been doing before. He recorded his conversations with Deacon, with Silas, with his doctors. And then he did something that surprised even himself. He bought a small recording device, no bigger than a pen, and installed it in the arm of his wheelchair. If something was happening to him, if someone was doing something to him, he wanted proof. It was probably paranoia. It was probably just the disease making him suspicious. But Elena's words echoed in his mind. "There are people here who don't wish you well." Silas Vance was one of those people. Every Tuesday night after Lincoln went to bed, Silas made a phone call, always to the same number, always to Deacon Cross. "He went to the park again," Silas reported, standing by the window of his small apartment. "Spent 3 hours with the girl. She's becoming a problem, a child." Deacon's voice crackled through the phone. "My brother controls a multi-million-dollar empire and he's playing chess with some kid from the slums every Wednesday like clockwork. Keep watching him document everything. When the time comes, I want to know every weakness." Deacon paused. "How's his memory?" Silas smiled slightly. "Getting worse every week. The new medication is working exactly as planned." "Good. Keep me informed." The line went dead. Silas pocketed his phone and stared out at the city lights. He felt nothing. Lincoln Cross had given him his cut, his rank, a purpose. But none of that mattered. Deacon was offering something better. Total control of the West Coast Charter when Lincoln was finally declared incompetent. Loyalty, Silas had learned long ago, was just a matter of price. On their 24th Wednesday together, the spring had returned almost exactly a year since they had first met. Maya arrived at the park to find Lincoln already waiting, a small velvet box resting on the chessboard. "What's that?" she asked, eyes wide. "A present for you, but it's not my birthday. Does it have to be your birthday to get a present from a friend?" Maya considered this. "I guess not. Grandma says presents are better when they're surprises." Anyway, she opened the box carefully, like it might contain something fragile. Inside, resting on white silk, was a silver bracelet. Simple, elegant, with a small charm in the shape of a letter. "W," Maya read aloud. What does W mean? Wednesday. Lincoln said, "It's a promise. As long as you wear that bracelet, I promise we'll always meet on Wednesdays, no matter what happens." Maya's lower lip trembled. She wasn't a crier. Not usually, but something about the way Lincoln said those words, "no matter what happens," made her chest feel tight. "Are you going somewhere?" she asked quietly. Lincoln reached out and took her hand. His fingers were trembling, weaker than they had been 6 months ago. "I'm not going anywhere, Maya, but life is unpredictable. And I want you to know that our friendship, these Wednesdays, they're the most important thing in my world right now." She threw her arms around him, her small body pressed against his heavy leather jacket, her face buried in his shoulder. "I love you, Lincoln," she whispered. "You're like the grandpa I never had." Lincoln closed his eyes, his arms wrapped around her, holding on as tight as his weakened body would allow. "I love you too, Maya," he said, "more than you'll ever know." Above them, the cherry blossoms continued to fall. Somewhere across the city, Deacon Cross was making plans. Silas Vance was taking notes. The wheels of betrayal were turning. But in that moment, in that park, there was only an old biker, a little girl, and a silver bracelet that meant everything. Wednesday, their day, their promise, no matter what. 3 weeks after Lincoln gave Maya the silver bracelet, the seizure came without warning. It happened in his study late at night. One moment he was writing in his treatment journal, documenting another day of memory gaps and strange fatigue. The next moment his body betrayed him completely. The convulsions were violent, throwing him from his wheelchair onto the cold, hardwood floor, his limbs twisted at unnatural angles. His teeth clamped down so hard he tasted blood. Somewhere far away, he heard Elena screaming his name. Then everything went black. He woke up in a hospital bed, surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed with clinical indifference. His body felt like it had been filled with wet sand. Every breath was an effort. A doctor stood at the foot of his bed, studying a chart with a troubled expression. "Mr. Cross, I'm Dr. Aris. You gave us quite a scare last night." The doctor paused, choosing his words carefully. "We found something unusual in your blood work. There's a foreign substance in your system that we can't immediately identify. We're running more tests." Lincoln's mind, foggy as it was, caught on those words. Foreign substance. "What kind?" "We're not sure yet. It could be a reaction to your medication, or it could be something else entirely." Dr. Aris looked uncomfortable. "Has anyone had access to your prescriptions? Anyone who might have altered them?" Before Lincoln could answer, the door swung open. Deacon Cross strode in like he owned the place. Behind him came Roxanne, Lincoln's ex-wife. She was still beautiful at 53. Blonde hair, perfectly styled, designer dress clinging to her figure. They had divorced 12 years ago, and she had walked away with $20 million. Apparently, that wasn't enough. Brother Deacon rushed to the bedside, his face arranged in an expression of deep concern. "We came as soon as we heard. How are you feeling? You look terrible." Roxanne hung back, her eyes scanning the room, not looking at Lincoln, looking for something else. "Where are his personal effects?" she asked the nurse. "His documents. We need to make sure everything is in order." Lincoln's stomach turned. They weren't here for him. They were here for what he owned. "I'm fine, Deacon," he managed, his voice weak. "Just a bad episode. The doctors are running tests." "Tests?" "Yes." Deacon nodded gravely. "Dr. Aris, may I speak with you outside about my brother's condition?" The two men stepped out. Through the glass window, Lincoln watched them talking. Deacon was doing most of the speaking, his hands moving emphatically. The doctor's expression grew more troubled by the minute. Roxanne finally approached the bed. She didn't touch him, didn't offer comfort. She simply stared down at him with cold calculation. "You should have listened to me 12 years ago," she said quietly. "I told you to put everything in a trust. Now look at you. Helpless, pathetic. What do you want, Roxanne?" She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I want what I'm owed Lincoln. We all do." Over the next 2 days, Lincoln learned the truth. Deacon and Roxanne had already contacted lawyers. They were filing paperwork to have him declared mentally incompetent, claiming his memory loss and erratic behavior proved he could no longer manage his own affairs. If they succeeded, Deacon would become his legal guardian. Deacon would control his money, his club charter, his entire life, and there was nothing Lincoln could do to stop them. On the 3rd day, something wonderful happened. And then something terrible. Maya appeared at his hospital door, clutching a bouquet of wildflowers she had picked from the park. Her denim jacket was wrinkled, her hair slightly messy. She must have come straight from school. "Lincoln!" She rushed toward him, her face lighting up with relief. "I went to the park on Wednesday, and you weren't there. I asked everyone and nobody knew where you were. Then Elena called Grandma and told us you were sick, and I made her bring me right away because I was so worried." Lincoln's heart swelled. Despite everything, despite the poison in his blood and the vultures circling his fortune, this little girl had come to find him with flowers from the park. "Maya," he whispered, "you shouldn't be here." "Why not? You're my friend. Friends visit each other when they're sick. That's what friends do." She started arranging the wild flowers in a plastic cup on his bedside table. Purple ones, yellow ones, white ones with little spots on the petals. "These are from our park," she explained. "I picked the prettiest ones I could find. Grandma says flowers have healing powers, not real powers like magic, but they make people feel better, which is kind of the same thing." For a moment, Lincoln forgot about Deacon and Roxanne. He forgot about the foreign substance in his blood. He just watched this 7-year-old girl arranging wild flowers with the seriousness of a surgeon performing an operation. Then the door burst open. Deacon stood in the doorway, his face twisted with disgust. He looked at Maya like she was an insect that had crawled into his food. "What the hell is this?" he demanded. "Who let this child in here?" Maya froze, the flowers still in her hands. She had never seen anyone look at her with such hatred. "I'm Maya," she said quietly. "I'm Lincoln's friend." "Friend," Deacon laughed, but it was an ugly sound. "You filthy little urchin from the slums. Who gave you permission to be here?" "This is a private room. Security. Deacon, stop." Lincoln tried to sit up, but his body wouldn't cooperate. "She's just a child. She's a street rat. Look at her. Dirty clothes, dirty hands. Coming in here with her weeds like she belongs." Deacon grabbed Maya's arm roughly. "Get out. Get out before I have you arrested." Maya's flowers scattered across the floor. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't make a sound. She just looked at Lincoln with those big brown eyes, silently begging him to help her. A security guard appeared and led Maya away. Lincoln watched her go, his heart breaking with every step she took. "Don't you ever speak to her like that again," he said to Deacon, his voice shaking with rage. Deacon smoothed his leather vest, already dismissing the incident. "You need rest, brother. The doctors say stress is bad for your condition. We'll talk tomorrow about the paperwork." That night, Lincoln knew he was running out of time. Deacon was moving fast. The lawyers would come tomorrow. After that, he might not have any control over his own life. He waited until the nurses changed shifts, then grabbed his phone with trembling fingers. Elena answered on the second ring. "Mr. Cross, is everything okay?" "Elena, listen carefully. I don't have much time." Lincoln spoke quickly, forcing his foggy brain to focus. "In my study behind the bookshelf, there's a purple folder. Inside is my treatment journal, my voice recorder, and a letter. I need you to take it to Maya tonight. Maya, the little girl. She's the only one I trust. Elena, please. Deacon is trying to take everything. He's doing something to my medication, I know it. And nobody will believe me because they think I'm crazy. Elena was silent for a long moment. Then she said, I will do it, sir, tonight, I promise. Tell her to hide it. Tell her not to trust anyone, and tell her. Lincoln's voice cracked. Tell her I'm sorry about the flowers. At 11 o'clock that night, Elena knocked on the door of a small apartment in Oakland. Maya's grandmother answered, confused and worried. I need to see Maya. Elena said, It's about Mr. Cross. It's urgent. Maya appeared in the doorway, still wearing her school clothes. Her eyes were red from crying. Elena handed her the purple folder. It was heavier than Maya expected. Mr. Lincoln told me to give this to you, Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. Hide it well. Don't trust anyone. He is putting all his hope in you, child. Maya clutched the folder to her chest. Is Lincoln going to be okay? Elena's eyes filled with tears. She didn't answer. She just turned and disappeared into the night. Alone in her small bedroom, Maya opened the folder. Inside, she found a leather journal, a small recording device that looked like a pen, and a sealed envelope with her name written on it in shaky handwriting. She opened the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. Lincoln's handwriting was messy, harder to read than usual, but she understood every word. Dear Maya, the letter began. If you are reading this, it means I am in danger. You are the only person I trust. Maya's hands trembled. She kept reading, her heart pounding faster with every sentence. Outside her window, the city lights flickered like distant stars. Somewhere across town, Deacon Cross was celebrating his victory. He had no idea that a 7-year-old girl in Oakland was holding the evidence that would destroy him. Maya read Lincoln's letter 7 times that night. Each time the words hit her harder. Someone was hurting her friend. Someone was poisoning him. And somehow, impossibly, Lincoln believed that she was the only one who could help. She was 7 years old. She didn't understand lawyers or courts or poison, but she understood one thing perfectly. Lincoln needed her. 2 weeks later, the courtroom of the California State Supreme Court was filled with expensive suits and legal jargon. The hearing to declare Lincoln Cross mentally incompetent was about to begin. Judge Sarah Higgins presided over the proceedings. She was 50 years old, a black woman with silver streaks in her hair and eyes that had seen every kind of lie the wealthy could buy. Her reputation for fairness was legendary, but even the fairest judge could only rule on the evidence presented. And today, all the evidence pointed in one direction. Deacon Cross sat at the petitioner's table, looking appropriately somber. Roxanne sat behind him, already calculating how to spend the money. Silas Vance was there too, ready to testify about Lincoln's declining mental state. Lincoln himself sat in a wheelchair at the respondent's table, but he might as well have been a mannequin. His eyes were glazed, unfocused, staring at nothing. His mouth hung slightly open. His hands lay limp in his lap. The doctors had given him sedatives that morning. For his own safety, they said. To keep him calm during the proceedings, they said, but everyone could see the truth. Lincoln Cross had been drugged into silence. His lawyer, a man named Warren Trent, sat beside him without speaking. Trent was supposed to defend Lincoln, supposed to fight for his rights, but Deacon had gotten to him first. A wire transfer of $200,000 had ensured that Trent would mount no real defense. Judge Higgins opened the proceedings with her usual formality. We are here today to consider the petition filed by Deacon Cross to be appointed legal guardian of his brother Lincoln Cross on grounds of mental incapacity. Mr. Cross, you may present your case. Deacon stood up, buttoning his jacket with practiced ease. Thank you, Your Honor. It brings me no pleasure to be here today. Lincoln is my brother, and I love him dearly. But the evidence will show that his mental deterioration has reached a point where he can no longer manage his own affairs. He presented document after document, medical reports showing cognitive decline, testimony from doctors about memory loss and confusion, financial records showing strange transactions that suggested impaired judgment. My brother has become paranoid, Deacon explained, his voice heavy with fake sorrow. He believes people are following him. He thinks his medication is being tampered with. These are classic symptoms of dementia-related psychosis. The courtroom nodded along. It all made perfect sense. Then Deacon played his trump card. We have also discovered that my brother has been conducting a secret relationship with a minor child from a troubled neighborhood. He meets her in the park. He gives her expensive gifts. This behavior, Your Honor, is deeply concerning and suggests he is no longer capable of appropriate social judgment. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Even Judge Higgins raised an eyebrow. Lincoln sat there drugged and helpless, unable to defend himself or his friendship with Maya. A single tear rolled down his cheek, but nobody noticed. Judge Higgins turned to the defense table. Mr. Trent, does your client wish to respond to these allegations? Warren Trent stood up slowly. He looked at Lincoln, then at Deacon, then back at the judge. Your Honor, given my client's current condition, we have no objection to the petition. We believe Mr. Deacon Cross is acting in his brother's best interest. No objection. 3 words that would steal Lincoln's entire life. Judge Higgins frowned. Something felt wrong to her, but she had seen no evidence to support her instinct. The petition was in order. The medical documents were signed. The lawyer was not objecting. Very well, she said, reaching for her pen. Based on the evidence presented, I am prepared to sign the order granting guardianship to Waite. The courtroom doors burst open, every head turned. A little girl stood in the doorway, clutching an old backpack to her chest. Her denim jacket was wrinkled, her hair slightly messy. She was breathing hard like she had been running. Maya had arrived. Your Honor, she shouted, her voice high and clear. I have evidence. The bailiff moved toward her, but Judge Higgins held up her hand. There was something about this child, something in her determined eyes that made the judge pause. Young lady, this is a closed proceeding. How did you get in here? Maya walked forward, her small sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. She was terrified. Her knees were shaking, but she kept walking. My name is Maya, she said. Lincoln Cross is my friend, and someone is hurting him. Deacon shot to his feet. This is outrageous, Your Honor. This is the very child I was talking about. She has clearly been manipulated by my brother's delusions. Sit down, Mr. Cross. Judge Higgins's voice was sharp. She looked at Maya with curious eyes. Child, what evidence do you have? Maya opened her backpack with trembling fingers. Lincoln gave me this. He told me to keep it safe. He told me people were trying to hurt him, and I didn't understand, but now I do. She pulled out the voice recorder, the small device that looked like a pen. Elena had taught her how to use it, had made her practice over and over, until she could do it with her eyes closed. I don't know how courts work, Maya admitted, her voice wavering. I'm only 7, but Lincoln said this would show the truth. Can I play it? Judge Higgins leaned forward. Bailiff, bring me that device. Deacon jumped up again. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. We have no idea what's on that recording. It could be fabricated. It could be. Mr. Cross, I said, sit down. The judge's tone left no room for argument. She took the recorder from the bailiff and examined it. Is there an objection from the defense? Warren Trent opened his mouth, but no words came out. He hadn't prepared for this. "No objection, Your Honor," he finally mumbled. Judge Higgins pressed play. The courtroom fell silent as Deacon's voice filled the room. "The new medication is working exactly as planned. His memory is getting worse every week. By the time we get to court, he won't even remember his own name." Then Silas's voice. "Are you sure about the dosage? If we give him too much, it might be obvious." Deacon again. "Just keep switching his pills. The doctors think it's the MS. Nobody suspects a thing. In a few months, I'll have full control of everything." The recording continued. Damning word after damning word. Deacon discussing how to forge medical reports. Silas explaining how he replaced Lincoln's real medication with something else. Roxanne asking how long until she could access the accounts. Every voice in that room heard the conspiracy laid bare. Deacon's face went white. He looked at Maya with pure hatred, but the little girl stood her ground. "There's more," Maya said. She reached into her backpack again and pulled out 2 small medicine bottles. Elena, Lincoln's helper, she switched the fake pills with the real ones. When nobody was looking, she gave them to me. She held up both bottles. "This one has the real medicine. This one has the fake stuff Deacon was giving Lincoln. You can test them. You'll see." The courtroom erupted. Deacon was shouting about conspiracies and manipulation. Roxanne was trying to slip toward the exit. Silas looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Judge Higgins banged her gavel 3 times. "Order. I will have order in this courtroom." The noise subsided. The judge stared at the medicine bottles, at the recorder, at the drugged man in the wheelchair who was just beginning to show signs of awareness. "This court is in recess," she announced. "I am ordering an immediate investigation into the allegations raised by this evidence. The pills will be tested by an independent laboratory. Mr. Deacon Cross, you are to be detained for questioning. Mr. Vance, you as well." Bailiffs moved toward Deacon and Silas. Roxanne tried to run, but she didn't get far. Furthermore, Judge Higgins continued, "Lincoln Cross is to be transferred immediately to an independent medical facility for evaluation and treatment. No family members are to have access until the investigation is complete." She looked down at Maya, her expression softening for the first time all day. "Young lady, what you did today was very brave. This court thanks you for your courage." Maya didn't understand most of what the judge said, but she understood that Lincoln was safe now. That was all that mattered. She ran to his wheelchair and grabbed his hand. His fingers were weak, but they squeezed back. "Lincoln," she whispered. "Can you hear me? It's Maya. You're going to be okay now." Lincoln's eyes focused on her face. For the first time in weeks, he truly saw something. He saw the little girl who had given him lemonade in the park. The little girl who had held his hand during a seizure. The little girl who had just saved his life. "Maya," he breathed. "You came. I promised," she said, touching the silver bracelet on her wrist. "Wednesday. Remember, I always keep my promises." Outside the courtroom, police cars were arriving. Investigators would spend months untangling the conspiracy. Deacon would eventually face charges, though his expensive lawyers would delay justice for years. But none of that mattered right now. Right now, there was only an old biker and a little girl holding hands in a courtroom full of chaos, connected by something stronger than money or power or blood. Trust. 5 years passed like a river flowing gently toward the sea. Maya was 12 now, taller than she had been, but still wearing that same stubborn expression that Lincoln had fallen in love with at first sight. Her hair was longer, pulled back in neat braids that her grandmother spent every Sunday morning perfecting. Her voice had grown stronger, too. the voice of a girl who had stood before 300 adults and changed the fate of a corporation. Lincoln kept his promise to give back. 6 months after the shareholder meeting, construction began on the Cross Education Center, right in the heart of Maya's neighborhood in Oakland, where there had once been an abandoned warehouse covered in graffiti. There now stood a gleaming 3-story building filled with computers, books, and dreams, free tutoring for any child who wanted it, scholarship programs for college, job training for parents. Lincoln poured millions into the center, but he never put his name on the front door. The community knew anyway. Every Saturday morning, Lincoln would wheel himself into the center's main hall and teach a class. Not business exactly, but something more valuable. He taught the kids about responsibility, about using power to help others, about the difference between being rich and being wealthy, and the things that mattered. Maya never missed a single session. "What's the most important quality in a leader?" Lincoln asked. One morning, looking out at the dozen children gathered around him, hands shot up everywhere, being smart, having money, being tough. Maya raised her hand last. "Caring about people more than you care about yourself." Lincoln smiled. "And how did you learn that, Maya?" "From watching you," she said simply. After class, they would sit in his office and talk about her future. Maya had discovered a new passion over the past few years, something that surprised even her grandmother. She wanted to study law. "I want to protect people," she explained one afternoon, flipping through a book about famous court cases like what happened in the courtroom when I was 7. That judge, Judge Higgins, she made sure the truth came out. She made sure the bad guys couldn't win just because they had more money. "I want to do that." Lincoln nodded slowly. "Law is a difficult path. Long years of study, lots of people who will try to stop you." "I don't care," her jaw set in that familiar way. "When they tried to take everything from you, nobody was there to fight back. Your own lawyer betrayed you. If I had been a real lawyer, I could have done more. I could have stopped them sooner. You stopped them just fine as a 7-year-old with a backpack. Next time, I want to stop them before they even start." Lincoln felt his heart swell with pride. This girl, this extraordinary girl, had taken the worst experience of her life and turned it into purpose. Meanwhile, justice finally caught up with Deacon Cross. The trial lasted 8 months. Prosecutors presented evidence of poisoning, financial fraud, conspiracy to commit kidnapping, and 6 other charges. Deacon hired the best lawyers money could buy, but even they couldn't overcome the recording Maya had played in court 5 years earlier. The judge sentenced him to 5 years in federal prison. Roxanne got off lighter. Her lawyers argued that she had been manipulated by Deacon, that she was merely a passive participant in his schemes. The court didn't fully believe her, but they showed mercy. 2,000 hours of community service working at homeless shelters and soup kitchens. The newspapers called it justice. Lincoln called it a start. On Maya's 12th birthday, Lincoln made another decision. He called her grandmother and asked permission to formally become Maya's godfather. Not adoption, he clarified quickly. "I know Maya wants to stay with you. I would never try to take her away from her home, but I want to be officially part of her life. I want to help provide for her future." Maya's grandmother was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Mr. Cross, you already saved my grandbaby's life. You gave us back our home. You gave her a future she never could have dreamed of. If you want to be her godfather, I would be honored." The ceremony was small and private. Just Lincoln, Maya, her grandmother, Elena, and Tommy Miller gathered in the living room of Maya's apartment. No cameras, no reporters, no press releases. Lincoln gave Maya a new charm for her silver bracelet. It was shaped like a book to represent her love of learning. "You're my goddaughter now," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "That means I'll always be here for you, no matter what." "I know," Maya said, hugging him carefully around his wheelchair. "You always have been." But not everyone celebrated this bond. In a prison cell in upstate California, Deacon Cross received a visitor. His son Wyatt was 25 years old now, with his father's sharp features and his grandfather's cold eyes. He had inherited the family ambition, but had learned to hide it better than his father ever could. "They took everything from us," Deacon said through the glass partition, his voice bitter. "The club, the reputation, the money. All because of that little girl." "Not everything," Wyatt replied calmly. "You still have 35% of Iron and Oil Enterprises stock. The courts couldn't touch that stock. I can't vote because I'm in here for now." Wyatt leaned closer. "Be patient, Father. I've been watching, learning. The old man is getting sicker. His MS is progressing faster than the doctors expected. And when he's gone, that girl will inherit control of the Cross Legacy Foundation. $2 billion handed to a teenager." Deacon's eyes narrowed. "What are you planning?" "Nothing yet. Just watching, waiting for the right moment." Wyatt stood up to leave. "Silas Vance got out of prison last month. He's been in touch. He still has contacts inside the Hells Angels compound." A slow smile spread across Deacon's face. "My clever boy, I learned from the best father. Rest up. When you get out, everything will be ready." Wyatt walked out of the prison and into the spring sunshine. He pulled out his phone and made a call. "It's me," he said. "Keep watching the girl. I want to know everything about her life, her friends, her routines, her weaknesses. When the time comes, I want no surprises." Back in San Francisco, Lincoln sat alone in his study, staring at a document he had been working on for months. It was his new will, completely rewritten from the version Deacon had tried to steal years ago. The MS was taking more from him every day. His legs had stopped working entirely last year. His hands trembled so badly he could barely hold a pen. Some mornings he couldn't remember where he was. The doctors had given him their honest assessment. End stage, maybe 2 years, maybe less. He read through the will one more time, making sure every word was perfect. When Maya turned 21, she would assume control of the Cross Legacy Foundation. $2 billion dedicated to helping children and protecting the elderly. Not his club, not his personal fortune, but his legacy. He trusted her completely. She was the only one who had never wanted anything from him except his friendship. Tommy Miller notarized the will that afternoon. Elena witnessed it. Everything was official. "Are you sure about this?" Tommy asked. "She's just a child. She won't be a child forever. And when she's ready, she'll do more good with that money than I ever could." Lincoln smiled sadly. "She's the best thing that ever happened to me, Tommy. The only good thing." The call came on a Tuesday night in November. Maya's grandmother had collapsed in the kitchen while making dinner. By the time the ambulance arrived, she was already gone. "A stroke," the doctor said, "quick and painless. She probably never felt a thing." Maya stood in the hospital hallway, numb and silent, still wearing her school uniform. She had been at debate practice when Elena came to get her. The whole drive over she had prayed it was a mistake. Her grandmother was strong. Her grandmother was invincible. Her grandmother couldn't just be gone. But she was. Lincoln arrived within the hour, wheeling himself through the hospital corridors as fast as his weakened arms could manage. He found Maya sitting alone in a waiting room, staring at nothing. He didn't say anything. He just wheeled up beside her and took her hand. They sat like that for a long time. Two people who had lost everyone else in the world holding on to each other in the fluorescent silence. The funeral was 3 days later. It was small and beautiful, filled with neighbors and church friends and children from the education center who had loved Maya's grandmother almost as much as Maya did. Maya stood at the graveside, clutching a handful of wildflowers, the same kind she had picked for Lincoln in the hospital all those years ago. Lincoln sat beside her in his wheelchair, wrapped in the same crimson bandana she had picked up in Golden Gate Park when she was 7. After everyone else had left, they stayed behind together. "I don't have anyone now," Maya whispered, her voice cracking. "She was all I had." Lincoln squeezed her hand. His fingers were weak, but his grip was firm with purpose. "That's not true," he said quietly. "You have me, and I have you." He pulled her close as his wheelchair would allow. "You are my only family now, Maya, and I am your only family. We will face whatever comes together." Maya buried her face in his shoulder and cried. Not the silent tears she had been holding back for days, but deep shaking sobs that came from somewhere she didn't know existed. Lincoln held her through all of it. This 12-year-old girl, who had already been through more than most adults ever would. Behind them, the sun was setting over the bay. Somewhere in the distance, a phone rang in Wyatt Cross's pocket. "The grandmother is dead," said the voice on the other end. "The girl is alone now." Wyatt smiled. "Perfect. Keep watching." The storm was coming, but for now, all Maya knew was the warmth of Lincoln's arms and the promise that she would never be truly alone. 6 more years flowed past like water through open fingers. Maya was 18 now, a freshman at Columbia Law School. She had grown into a striking young woman, tall and confident with her grandmother's warm eyes and Lincoln's stubborn determination. The silver bracelet still hung from her wrist, now heavy with charms that marked every milestone of her journey. Lincoln was 73, and the MS had finally won. His body had become a prison. He couldn't move his arms anymore. He couldn't speak above a whisper. Most days he drifted in and out of consciousness, trapped somewhere between sleep and waking. But every Wednesday, no matter how bad things got, Maya came to sit beside his bed. She would read to him from her law textbooks, explaining cases and precedents as if he could still understand. She would tell him about her classes, her professors, her dreams of becoming a civil rights attorney. Sometimes she would just hold his hand and talk about nothing at all. On the last Wednesday, Lincoln opened his eyes and saw her clearly for the first time in weeks. "Maya," he breathed, his voice barely audible. She leaned closer, tears already forming. "I'm here, Lincoln. I'm right here." His lips moved slowly, each word costing him tremendous effort. "Thank you for the lemonade that day." Maya's hand tightened around his. "What do you mean?" "It saved my soul." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "I was so alone for so long. Then you came with your terrible lemonade and everything changed. It wasn't terrible," Maya whispered through her tears. "You said it was perfect. It was because you made it." His eyes started to close. "I love you, my little girl. I love you too so much. Please don't go." But Lincoln Cross was already gone, slipping away as peacefully as a leaf falling from a tree. His hand grew still in hers. His chest stopped rising. Maya sat there holding him until the sun went down, until the nurses came to gently take him away. 11 years of Wednesdays ended in a single breath. The will was read 3 days later. Lincoln had left his personal fortune to various charities. His club shares went into a trust for medical research, but the Cross Legacy Foundation, worth $2 billion, would transfer to Maya's control when she turned 21. She inherited no personal money, not a single dollar for herself, just the responsibility of continuing his legacy. Wyatt Cross had other plans. Deacon had died in prison 2 years earlier, bitter and broken to the end. But his son had inherited more than just his ambition. Wyatt had spent the past decade building his own business empire, cultivating connections, and waiting for exactly this moment. The lawsuit came 1 month after Lincoln's funeral. Wyatt filed papers accusing Maya of psychological manipulation, claiming she had exploited an elderly man's loneliness to gain control of billions. His lawyers painted a devastating picture of a calculating young woman who had targeted Lincoln from their very first meeting in the park. The media loved it. Headlines screamed across every tabloid and news website. Black girl from the slums bewitches biker boss, gold digger or guardian angel, the lemonade scheme, how one child manipulated her way to billions. Maya watched the coverage from her tiny dorm room, feeling like the walls were closing in. Everything she and Lincoln had shared, every Wednesday afternoon, every chess game, every conversation about stars and dreams was being twisted into something ugly and false. Then Silas Vance appeared on television. He sat across from a sympathetic interviewer, looking reformed and regretful, and told lie after lie about what he had witnessed during his years in the Hells Angels compound. She was calculating from the start, Silas said, shaking his head sadly. I watched her manipulate that poor old man for years. She knew exactly what she was doing. Every smile, every hug, every visit was designed to make him dependent on her. Maya turned off the television and made a decision. She would not hide. She would not run. And she would not let anyone else fight her battles. The next morning, she filed papers with the court announcing that she would represent herself. No lawyers, no legal team, just an 18-year-old law student against a corporate empire. The judge assigned to the case was skeptical. Miss Cross, do you understand the complexity of this lawsuit? The opposing counsel has decades of experience. I understand, Your Honor, but nobody knows this case better than I do. Nobody knows Lincoln better than I did. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Wyatt's lawyers presented their case with polished precision. They showed financial records, medical reports, and testimony from experts who had never met Lincoln Cross. They painted Maya as a sophisticated con artist who had spent 11 years executing the perfect scheme. Then it was Maya's turn. Her first witness was Judge Sarah Higgins, now retired, the same woman who had presided over the guardianship hearing 11 years earlier. I remember that day clearly. Higgins testified. A 7-year-old girl burst into my courtroom with evidence that saved a man's weave. There was no calculation in her eyes, only courage and love for her friend. Elena testified next, her voice breaking as she described the Wednesdays she had witnessed, the genuine joy Lincoln found in Maya's company, and the way he had spoken about her when she wasn't around. He called her his angel, Elena said. Not because of money, because she made him feel human again. For the first time in 30 years, he had someone who saw him as a person, not a cut. Then Maya took the stand herself. She brought Lincoln's leather journal, the same one he had started writing in all those years ago when he first suspected something was wrong. But she didn't read from the pages about poison and conspiracy. She turned to the very first entry. This was written on October 15th, the day after Lincoln and I met in the park, she said, her voice steady despite the cameras and the crowded courtroom. I'd like to read it to the court. She cleared her throat and began. Today, I met a child. Her name is Maya. She gave me a cup of lemonade because she thought I looked tired. It was too sour and full of seeds, and it was the best thing anyone has given me in decades. For the first time in 30 years, I did not feel alone. I don't know why this little girl stopped for me when everyone else walked past, but I am grateful. So incredibly grateful. Maybe there is still kindness in this world after all. The courtroom was silent. Maya closed the journal and looked at Wyatt, who sat frozen at the plaintiff's table. This is who Lincoln was, she said. A lonely man who found joy in a cup of lemonade. I never asked him for anything. I never expected anything. I just wanted to play chess with my friend every Wednesday. She turned to the judge. The Cross Legacy Foundation has distributed over $400 million in the past 5 years. Every penny has gone to education programs, elder care facilities, and children's hospitals. I have never taken $1 for personal use. My dorm room costs $800 a month. I work part-time at the campus library. I own 3 pairs of jeans. She held up financial records she had prepared herself. This is the foundation's complete accounting. This is my personal bank statement. The truth is right here in black and white. The defense had one final move. Tommy Miller, still loyal after all these years, had been investigating Wyatt since the lawsuit began. He had found something devastating. "Your Honor," Maya said, "I would like to submit evidence showing that Wyatt Cross has received payments totaling $15 million from the Blackwood Syndicate over the past 3 years. The same cartel that tried to take over iron and oil enterprises with his father. The same cartel that would benefit most from destroying the Cross Legacy Foundation." Wyatt's lawyers objected. The judge overruled them. The evidence was damning. Wire transfers, emails, recorded phone calls. Wyatt hadn't filed this lawsuit out of family loyalty. He had been paid to destroy Maya's reputation and tear down everything Lincoln had built. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood and read the verdict in a clear voice. "We find in favor of the defendant Abigail Maya on all counts." The courtroom erupted. Journalists rushed for the exits. Wyatt sat motionless, watching his world collapse. Furthermore, the judge announced, "Based on the evidence presented, I am referring Wyatt Cross and Silas Vance to the district attorney's office for investigation of perjury, fraud, and conspiracy." Maya stood alone at the defense table, trembling with exhaustion and relief. She touched the silver bracelet on her wrist, the one with the W charm that Lincoln had given her so many years ago. She had done it. She had protected his legacy with her own 2 hands. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded her with cameras and microphones. But Maya had only one thing to say. "Lincoln Cross saved my life when I was 7 years old. He believed in me when nobody else did. Everything I am, everything I will become is because of him." She looked directly into the camera. "This foundation will continue his work. I will make sure of it until my last breath." She walked down the courthouse steps alone, 18 years old, carrying the weight of $2 billion and 11 years of love on her shoulders. Wednesday was coming, and she had work to do. 15 years transformed Maya Cross from a grieving law student into one of the most powerful women in America. The journey wasn't easy. After winning the lawsuit against Wyatt, she had thrown herself into the Cross Legacy Foundation with a determination that bordered on obsession. Every dollar Lincoln had entrusted to her went exactly where he would have wanted it to go. She built elder care facilities in forgotten neighborhoods where senior citizens had nobody to protect them. She funded after-school programs for children growing up the way she had, with empty refrigerators and uncertain futures. She created legal aid clinics that helped families fight back against predators who targeted the vulnerable. By the time she was 25, the Cross Legacy Foundation had become the largest charitable organization in America, dedicated to protecting the elderly and abandoned children. By 30, it had expanded internationally with programs in 12 countries and an annual budget that exceeded $500 million. But Maya wanted more. She wanted laws that would prevent people like Deacon and Wyatt from ever hurting anyone again. She wanted systemic change, not just charity, so she ran for office. The campaign was brutal. Her opponents dug up every old headline, every racist tabloid story from her lawsuit days. They called her unqualified, inexperienced, too young to understand how politics really worked. Maya responded the only way she knew how. She told her story. She stood in front of crowds and talked about a lonely biker boss, a cup of lemonade, and 11 years of Wednesdays that had changed everything. People listened. People believed. Washington, D.C., the Capitol building, a crisp January morning. Maya Cross stood on the steps of the Senate chamber, her right hand raised, her left hand resting on a worn leather journal. It was Lincoln's journal, the same one she had read from in court all those years ago. "I do solemnly swear," she repeated after the Chief Justice, "that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter. So help me God." The crowd erupted in applause. Camera flashes exploded like fireworks. Senator Maya Cross of California had officially taken her seat. She was 33 years old, the youngest senator in the chamber, and only the third black woman ever elected to represent California in the United States Senate. Her first piece of legislation was already written, drafted during long nights in her small apartment, while the campaign raged around her. She called it the Cross Act, a comprehensive law designed to prevent elder abuse in all its forms. The bill mandated criminal background checks for all caregivers. It created a national registry of abuse offenders. It established severe penalties for financial exploitation of seniors and required banks to flag suspicious transactions involving elderly account holders. Most importantly, it gave families the legal tools to fight back before it was too late. The Cross Act passed the Senate with a bipartisan majority 6 months after Maya took office. When the president signed it into law, Maya stood behind him in the Oval Office, clutching her silver bracelet and thinking about a man who had almost lost everything because nobody was watching out for him. "This one's for you, Lincoln." Years passed. Maya's influence grew. She became known as the senator who actually kept her promises, who showed up at town halls and remembered constituents' names, who fought for bills that would never make headlines but would change real lives. But no matter how busy she got, no matter how many meetings filled her calendar, Maya always found time for one ritual every October 15th. The anniversary of the day she met Lincoln, she returned to Golden Gate Park. This year was no different. The spring air was crisp and bright, carrying the scent of blooming flowers and distant hot dogs. The park was quieter than usual, most people hurrying home before the evening chill set in. Maya walked along the familiar paths, past the fountain where children threw pennies and made wishes, past the bench where dog walkers gathered to gossip until she reached the spot. The same wooden bench, the same view of the trees, the same place where a 7-year-old girl had picked up a stranger's bandana and changed the course of 2 lives forever. She sat down heavily, feeling the weight of 15 years pressing on her shoulders. On her lap was a folded crimson bandana, old and faded now, but still soft. Lincoln's bandana, the one that had blown away on that spring day so long ago. She never went anywhere without it. For a while, she just sat there watching the clouds move, remembering Lincoln's laugh, his terrible chess jokes, the way his eyes lit up whenever she walked into a room. God, she missed him. After all these years, she still missed him every single day. A small voice interrupted her thoughts. "Excuse me, ma'am. Would you like to buy some lemonade?" Maya looked up and her heart stopped. A little boy stood before her, maybe 8 years old. He was thin, wearing clothes that were slightly too big for him, and carrying a plastic pitcher filled with pale yellow liquid. His face was earnest and hopeful, with the kind of determined expression that Maya recognized instantly. She had worn that same expression once, but that wasn't what made her breath catch in her throat. Behind the boy, an elderly woman sat in a wheelchair near the path. Her hat had blown off in the wind and landed a few feet away. She was reaching for it helplessly, unable to stand while people walked past without stopping. The boy set down his pitcher and ran to help her. Maya watched him pick up the hat, dust it off carefully, and place it gently back on the woman's head. The old woman smiled and patted his cheek, gratefully. The boy smiled back, then returned to his lemonade stand as if nothing remarkable had happened. But Maya knew better. She knew exactly how remarkable it was. She stood up and walked over to the boy's table. The sign was handwritten on cardboard just like hers had been. Fresh lemonade, 50 cents. "I'd like one, please," Maya said softly. The boy poured her a cup with careful concentration. It was cloudy and had too many seeds floating in it. "Absolutely perfect." Maya took a sip, too sour, just like Lincoln had probably thought all those years ago. She smiled. "What's your name?" she asked. "Leo," the boy said. "I'm saving up for new shoes. My mom works 2 jobs, but shoes are expensive, you know." "I know." Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out something she had carried with her for 26 years. The Hells Angels President ring, a heavy gold band with a modified club insignia and the letter C engraved on its face. Lincoln had given it to her on her 10th birthday. She placed it in Leo's small palm. The boy stared at it, confused. "What's this for?" "You remind me of someone," Maya said gently. "Someone who taught me that kindness is the most powerful thing in the world." She closed his fingers around the ring. "If you ever need anything at all, I want you to go to the Cross Education Center on Mission Street. Show them this ring. Tell them Maya sent you." Leo's eyes went wide. "The Cross Center. My mom took me there once. They helped her get a better job." "I'm glad to hear that." Maya smiled, her heart full to bursting. "Keep being kind, Leo. Keep helping people who need it. You never know whose life you might change." She paid for her lemonade, leaving a $100 bill on the table before Leo could protest. Then she walked back to the bench and sat down again, the cup warm in her hands, Lincoln's bandana draped over her shoulders. The sun was setting over Golden Gate Park, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear children laughing, dogs barking, life going on the way it always did. Maya closed her eyes and let herself remember. A lonely biker in a wheelchair, a little girl with a pitcher of lemonade, a bandana caught by the wind, a friendship that defied every expectation, a love that transcended death. This is your legacy, Lincoln. Not the money, not the businesses, not the laws. This moment, this boy, this kindness passing from one generation to the next, like a river that never stops flowing. She opened her eyes and looked at the lemonade in her hand, then at the bandana on her shoulders, then at the little boy in the distance, who was already helping another stranger pick up something they had dropped. One small act of kindness. That's all it took to change the world. Maya Cross smiled through her tears and whispered into the spring air, "Thank you, Lincoln, for everything." The wind carried her words away, scattering them like seeds across the city. And somewhere, somehow, she knew he heard her. And just like that, the story comes to a close, leaving behind a lesson we often forget. Kindness costs nothing, but its value is beyond measure. A cup of lemonade, a bandana picked up from the ground. A moment of simple human connection. That's all it took to save two souls who didn't know they needed saving. Lincoln found his reason to live. Maya found her purpose. And the world gained a reminder that we are never too small to make a difference, and never too broken to be healed by love. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe so you never miss another story. And tell me in the comments, have you ever experienced a moment when a stranger's kindness changed your life? I'd love to hear your